Hello there, and welcome to our discussion circle presentation today, which is on overcoming fear to live your life to the fullest. So we've got a great presentation today, so let's get into it. So overcoming fear to live your life for the fullest. And we're going to look at, well, why is that actually important? Why do we need to overcome fear? What does it do in our life that stops us from living our life to the fullest? And then we'll look at, well, how do you overcome the fear? What steps do we need to take to do that? So the first thing, Will Smith has this great quote, and I love it. Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist in is in our thoughts of the future. And when you think about that, it is. The only thing we fear is what could possibly happen in the future. Because we don't fear what's happened in the past, because it's happened. We don't fear what's happening in the present. It's only what we imagine could happen in the future. So it is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present, so do not at present, and may not ever exist. And I like this. That is near insanity. And when you think about it, it's crazy. Why would we put all that energy and make ourselves feel bad for something that may not actually ever happen? And so I say, well, if you can imagine the worst possible outcomes, then you are also very capable of imagining the best possible outcomes. And my question to you is, which ones are going to make you feel better? Which ones are going to make you happier and ready to do things and ready to step out of your comfort zone? I know. Because as Steve Maraboli puts very, very succinctly, I promise you that nothing is as chaotic as it seems. Nothing is worth diminishing your health, which is what fear and worry and anxiety does. Nothing is worth poisoning yourself into stress, anxiety, and fear. And it is a poison. It absolutely poisons our system because it's a very, very negative energy. And I add to that, fear is not worth missing out on the life you desire and dream of living. It's too big a sacrifice. It's not worth it. So let's look at understanding fear. What is it all about? The first thing is that fear is actually a natural, powerful, primitive human emotion. It is something that we all experience at some time in our life, and it's absolutely natural. When we look into the psychology of it, fear has dual responses. So the initial one is when we're in fear of our life, and we have a biochemical, as in a physical response. And it comes from the reptilian part of our brain, and it causes the adrenaline to increase in our body all over, and it makes us ready to, as they say, go into fight or flight. So either we are going to fight for our survival, or we're going to run away and get away from the danger. And this goes back to the early days of the caveman. If there's a great big ugly, dinosaur, or let's go great big bear, then he's going to either try and fight it, and he might go, I'm not gonna take that bear on, and so he's going to run as fast as he damn well can. There is another response that happens, and this is another fear response, and it's called the freeze. So fight, flight, or freeze. And that's when we just get so scared that we're incapable of doing anything. And it's like such an extreme response. And I remember, this isn't a nice story, and I don't even like thinking about it. I don't know why I am. So when, but it's an example of the freeze. And I was coming home one night from the ballet, and I saw my cat's body in the middle of the road, you know, around the corner from my house. And I just pulled over the car because I immediately went into fear. It's like, oh my God, what's happened? So I just stopped the car. It was midnight, so there weren't many cars there, any. And I jumped out and I went over to her, and then I was like, I could hardly breathe, and I couldn't even cry. So I had a freeze response where I could not respond to what was happening, you know, to what was right in front of me. And that's what happened. So sometimes we get so caught up like that. And I'll talk about that in a moment as to how we can manage that fear response in the moment. The other response is a highly individual emotional response. And what that means is it is different for everyone. And when you think about it, you know, think about the adrenaline junkies. You know, particularly men, it is mostly men, but not entirely men, who just love to going into bungee jumping or like the scariest things you can think of. And they love it because they love the adrenaline rush. So their emotional response to fear is, wow. You know, it is like, wow, that's amazing. And it's just, it's a positive response because they love it. But then there's most of the rest of us who will have a negative response. You know, when something happens that scares us, we will go into a shutdown or a highly anxious mode. We'll go into a defense mode because it's not a positive response. But then think about how many of us watch watch horror movies and the mystery dramas where you don't know what's going to happen and are they going to get killed, and oh my God, you know, how many times have you sat on your couch like I do? Like I'll be laying on the couch, I'm okay, watching this movie, and then something really scary comes and I'm sitting up and I'm holding my knees and I'm like and that's again a response to fear. But we still do it, so I don't hate it that much, do I? We sort of like putting ourselves through that. It's like, oh well, you know. And then if we look at where fear stems from, it absolutely stems from real threats of danger, of what really could go wrong. So if we're standing there next to a snake, as I have done in Australia, and it's laying across the path that I was walking on, and I was scared. Like I had a real genuine fear response to that. But I stayed calm and we walked the other way, and we had a look at this snake, and one of the guys with us looked it up later, and it was a yellow belly something or other, and it's just something like the third most venomous snake in the world. So genuine response to fear there. But fear also comes with as a symptom of mental health conditions. So it comes with panic disorder, social anxiety disorders, phobias, and post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'll add to that, it comes with certain dementias, which is a mental health issue. My mother had Lewy bodies dementia, and that was symptomized by severe paranoia, hallucinations, and delusions. So she was just she was in a living nightmare while she was alive, where she was constantly in fear of things happening. And I tell you, some of the stories she told me, there were horrid, horrid things going on in her brain. It was an awful place to be. So, you know, and that's things that people don't have control over, or it's very, very difficult to get control over. And they need, you know, they need therapy in most cases, and sometimes even drugs to control it. But then there's the imagined threats of danger or things going wrong. And that's really what we're focusing on today, because the real threats of danger, that's an absolutely natural and sensible response if there's, you know, a very venomous snake across your path in front of you. You know, we have to, you know, our bodies do need to go into action to survive. But the imagined threats of danger is what Will Smith was talking about, and Steve Maraboli. And what do they do to us? Now, the other interesting, well, what I was mentioning before, that is, although the physical reaction is the same, the way we experience fear can be either positive or negative for us. So it can be that enjoyment of being scared, watching a horror movie, knowing that, you know, you're actually safe. Or it can be that thrill of the adrenaline junkie of, you know, doing the bungee jump and the other, and I've seen the guys skiing and they like jump off cliffs. If you've seen the radical skiing in the videos, those people are crazy. Or there's the negative that most of us deal with most of the time when we've got our fear. So let's have a look at this imagined fear. It comes from worrying about what could go wrong. And if we look in this little diagram, you know, the big circle is what we worry about. So these are all the things that could go wrong. Then we've got the things that, well, can actually happen, you know, that like are plausible, maybe even probable, I don't know, possible at least. And then in this tiny, tiny little dot down here are the things that actually do happen. So we find ourselves worrying about all these things that are just actually irrelevant. And they don't do us any service at all, because worry brings down our negative, you know, brings down our vibration, because it's such a negative response. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Sadhguru here who is a wonderful, I guess, guru to listen to. He's got lots and lots of videos. And I like what he says here. To create fear, you have to use a large amount of imagination. So, you know, it takes a lot of effort to create the fear by imagining what could go wrong. But you do not have to do anything. You just have to imagine. But your fear is, no, wait a sec. Let me start again. To create fear, you have to use an excessive imagination. To not be in fear, you don't have to do anything. Your fear is almost always about that which does not exist. So think about that. Let it sink in. To not fear, we don't have to do anything except not fear. It's crazy when you think about it, isn't it? Like how much time we spend fear and worry or anxiety, and it's just so much effort. So let's look at how that actually affects us. If we look at the emotional guidance scale, and on the left, we have all the positive emotions, and all these emotions increase our vibration. You know, they make us feel happier and happier. They make people attracted to want to be near us because they want more of what we've got. And that's the really good side on the left. But on the right is the negative, or what we call below the line emotions. And these are the negative emotions. And if you look down here, this one right down the bottom, meaning the most negative and emotion and lowest vibration is fear, grief, depression, powerlessness, and feeling like a victim. So it's our fear will take us down to that really, really negative space. And if we keep thinking about that, and when we get into that state, I don't know if you realize, but that's when we tend to get sick. That's when our immune system will shut down. It's when, something will happen in our bodies. Cancer can form, anything that can go wrong with our bodies are more likely to happen when we're in this negative spiral. And if you believe, which I do, in the law of attraction, this quote from Robin Sharma sums it up. So what you focus on grows, and that's the law of attraction. Whatever you give your thoughts to is what you will create in your life. So what you think about expands, and what you dwell upon determines your destiny. So what it's saying is that whatever you allow to go on in your mind and whatever you focus on will determine how good or bad a life you live. So if you're spending a lot of time living in fear of your imagined outcomes, then you're actually creating a lot of negativity in your life. And you will be, sorry, my power cable's popped out. Good one, Janeen, in the middle of a recording. Hi, I'm just human. I make mistakes too. So where was I? I was back on the previous one. So whatever we're focusing on, we're going to get more of that in our life. So if you focus on all the negative things that can happen, you're going to get more negative things happening. If you focus on positive things that can happen, you will get more positive things happening. So I so often want to tell people this, when they get caught up in that anxiety, but it's really hard for someone who's struggling with anxiety to the point of a mental health issue to help them understand that they can choose something different. Because when you've got a mental illness, you don't feel capable of choice. And I don't want to oversimplify things because I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist. But I'm just going with the people who can see this and can make the choice. So how do we manage that real, genuine fear? In the moment, so when we feel that fear in the moment, the first thing we have to remind ourselves to do is to breathe deeply. And the reason for that is that when we are struck with fear, what's the first thing you stop doing? Breathing. We go, so, and then what happens is the oxygen reduces to our brain, so we stop being able to think clearly, and the fight and flight comes up in our reptilian part of our brain, in the amygdala, and we cease to be able to think rationally and logically, because that's what happens to our brain. It sort of goes into survival mode and really focuses on what do we need to do to survive this fear. So step number 1, breathe deeply. Step number 2, calm yourself down. It's like take a moment to go, okay, what do I need to do? Let's think rationally. Let's bring some logic in here. The third one is acknowledge your fear. Acknowledge, like, yep, I understand. Yeah, okay, I feel fear. There's a reason for that. Is it realistic? Do I have a genuinely good reason for feeling fear in this moment? And then ask for help and a second opinion. Because, if we do have a genuine reason to fear, then, and we can get someone to help us overcome that, then that's what we need. But as far as checking the reality of the situation, asking for a second opinion is always a fabulous step to do. So let's look at some strategies now to overcome fear. And the first step is so big. And that is, be prepared to face your fears. Now, that's what they do with phobias. So people have this irrational fear of snakes or flying or whatever it is. They actually get them to face them. So people who have a fear of snakes, they get them to touch the snake. Because it's only by facing your fear that you go, oh, it's not that bad. No, it's not going to hurt me. Of course, they do that with non-venomous snakes. They don't use the really dangerous ones. And I don't know that they really use the big pythons as well, because I think a big python wrapping around my arm would make me feel pretty scared as well. So anyhow, next step, take a reality check to be realistic about the risk and the probabilities of what you're thinking might happen, whether it is going to happen. And that's really important, because this is where you need to sort of get the rational thinking part of your brain working again. You need to get it to go, okay, what's happening? What's going on? Do I need, is this a genuine thing? What are the probabilities? What are the options? Now, I once had this situation. I was in Uganda with a group of people. We'd gone through a checkout in Uganda, and to get this into context, checkouts in Uganda are full of young guys holding machine guns and drinking alcohol. So, and you're in Uganda at that time, you weren't allowed to be on the road after 6 p.m. So you had to be in a town and in a hotel. So our fearless leader took us through a checkpoint. Then we drove off the road and went into the bushes and set up camp. And we'd been sitting there talking about all the scary things that happen in Africa, like people being killed and bodies sold for parts. And there was an English girl whose head was found, and they tried to say that a lion killed her, but it wasn't at all. It was poachers, and like really nice stories. And then we heard some gunshots fired. And then we heard some yelling and some machine guns fired. And then I think we heard, so Jono, who was our guide, put the fire out, told everyone, get to bed, get into your tent. And he went and got a gun out of the truck. And I tell you what, we went into the tent, and I had my then husband in front of me, and he was looking out, and we heard the machine gun fire. And I said, can you see it? Because it sounded so close, I would swear that you could have seen the sparks from the machine gun from the tent. And then I went into, let's think logically about the risks involved here. And I thought, right, well, if it's the guys at the checkpoint and they've got drunk and they're just shooting for the fun of it, and they happen to find us, then they'd probably shoot us for the fun of it too. And because we're doing something illegal. It's like, okay, don't like that outcome. And then I thought, oh, well, we'd also heard about the guerrillas, not gorillas, the guerrillas, the Tutsis and the Hutus, the ones that caused the genocide in Rwanda in 1992. Well, this was towards the end of 1990. And someone had said to us, what was the tension like in Rwanda when we arrived in Uganda? And we said, oh, what tension? They said, oh, it's been guerrilla warfare there since, And we looked at a paper, and they had closed the borders on Sunday, and we left Saturday night. So that was a little bit close. So when we thought about guerrillas coming through Uganda into Rwanda, we thought, well, they'd just kill us to take our truck and everything. And this was even before the genocide. And then the third, we thought, okay, we don't like that option. And then the third option was that it was the local people in the local village. And if they were drunk and they found us, they'd probably kill us to take the truck and all of our belongings and things. So it was like, okay, there wasn't a lot of benefit in applying that sort of logic, because that was real fear. And to be honest, I have never felt so close to death in my whole life. That was the closest. So then I went, okay, we need to go to sleep. We didn't get much sleep that night, but it was okay. Nothing happened. We were all fine. But we did find out the next day that one of the local villagers had been killed. He had been shot. So it was, thank God they didn't find us. So anyhow, moving on to our list. Be conscious of the physical sensations caused by fearful thoughts. So this is what I mean by, stopping breathing, shallow breathing, tightness in the gut, sweating, all of those things come about. And it's like, be aware of, well, what's actually happening in my body. And if it's not a real and genuine reason to be fearful, but you're feeling fear all the time or very, very often, and this is the case with PTSD, then be aware that what is that doing to your body? How is it making you feel? Because you might get to a stage where you've come to think that that's just normal. It's normal for you, it's normal to breathe shallowly. No, maybe shallowly. and then you're never getting enough oxygen through your body. Or if you're constantly feeling tight in your gut, what's that doing to your muscles there and your digestive system? So there's things that have repercussions. The next one, stay very aware and mindful of your thoughts. So really be conscious of your thoughts. And in the next one, reject negative thoughts and select the positive ones. So do your best to go, yeah, okay, I'm imagining that. That's a really negative thought. Instead of focusing on that negative outcome, I'm going to focus on, well, what's the best thing that could happen? And let's think about that. Then it's important to visualize these best outcomes that can occur and focus on them. And attach your feel-good emotions to these visualizations of positive outcomes. Because then what you're doing is, this is all part of the law of attraction. If we imagine an outcome that we want and we focus on that outcome and we think about, well, how good are we going to feel when that happens? Then we start creating it, because it's the thoughts and emotions that actually create it rather than the desire for it to happen. Use positive affirmations and meditations to keep your vibrations high, because we want to get out of that, deep negative spiral, and we want to get ourselves up to a higher positive spiral. And, YouTube videos and things like that are really good for doing that, and guided meditations in particular. And then the last one, consciously acknowledge and celebrate what has actually worked and bring it into our mind, because so often we go into a fear and then we go into this negative response. It's like, oh, everything's always going wrong like this. Nothing ever works for me. I always lose out when these things happen. So we go into this generalization and universalization of making it, all bad. Whereas if we think about it, well, what actually has worked well, and if we make ourselves conscious of what's working in our life, we're less likely to go into those negative generalizations. It's like, yeah, no, I actually had a really good day yesterday. And so-and-so called me and they've invited me out for lunch, and that's really great. Oh, and someone else asked me to do an interview. So that's really good. Instead of going into that, well, no one likes me and no one wants to spend time with me type fear. So all of those are really great strategies to help you overcome ongoing fear of imagination. And here is my quote for the day, which is, I've pretty much already said it, use your imagination wisely. Imagine the best outcomes and not the worst. So that's the presentation over. Let's do our meditation now. And so we're going to be focusing on not being in fear. So get yourself into a comfortable position and relax and close your eyes. And take a big, deep breath. In and out. And now I'm going to count for 4. So breathe in for 4 and out for 4. So in, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. In, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Once more, in, 2, 3, 4. Out, 2, 3, 4. Now take one more big deep breath, push your belly out, and when you exhale, exhale with a sound. So in, because that really helps you to relax. And now we're going to check in with our body. So let's start at the top of the head. And I want you to check where you're at. Are you feeling relaxed? Do you have any places of tension in your body at the moment? So in your head, do you have any tightness? Is there a tightness at the back of your head or in your neck? And down to your shoulders. They're all areas where we tend to hold stress and fear. And now down your arms and into your fingers and your hands. Are there any areas of tightness there? Move your fingers, move your arms and your shoulders a bit. Give them a little wiggle. Then come to your chest. Are you feeling any tightness there? And down to your abdomen. Is your gut feeling tight? Do you have that feeling in it? Into your buttocks. We store so much stress and tension there. Often we don't even know when they're feeling tight until we consciously relax them. Into your thighs, your calves, your feet. Give your legs and your toes a little wiggle to relax them. And now we're going to go back up to our chakras from the heart chakra. And actually we're going to start with the base chakra today, because the base chakra is where we go into fight and flight and that fear mechanism. So our base chakra is down the bottom of our pelvis. Focus on that and open it up, saying, there is nothing to fear. I am safe in this world. I'm going to jump up to the heart chakra and open that up and say, I am surrounded by love. There is love and goodness all around me, and I invite it into my heart. And then to our throat chakra. I speak the truth and goodness. I don't cause fear, and open that up to your truth. And then your third eye in your middle of your forehead. This is where you see, this is where you use your intuition. And open that up with, I trust my third eye and my intuition to let me know what I really need to worry about and what I don't. And if my intuition is telling me I don't need to worry, then I trust that intuition. Now up to our crown chakra. And we open that up. And just above our head is a beautiful, bright light coming from the source energy above us. And that light is violet, because violet is a calming but also empowering light. So the violet light will help us overcome any fear that we have. So welcome that light into down through your crown chakra, around your third eye chakra, into your throat and around there, and wrap itself around your heart, and down through your abdomen to your base chakra, and send healing, love and light into your body to overcome any fear, so that you can live your life to the fullest, so that you're not imagining the bad things anymore, so that you're only dealing with what's going on in the present and what's actually happening for you. And spread the violet light throughout you, throughout your body, through your mind, through everything, with its healing vibrations. And now take a moment to think about what are the things in your life that cause you to go into a fear response with stress, anxiety, and negativity. What things trigger fear for you? And what do you fear in your life? Even at the moment, what do you fear? And now I want you to take all of those fears and put them in a big black ball. Shove them in there. Shove them in, all of them. Get every single one. And now grab that ball and throw it as far as you possibly can out into the universe. Can you see it? It's flying. It's going right out there. It's out amongst the stars. Oh, and look, it's just been zapped. And it's just blown up with a beautiful bright light. It's gone. Your fears are gone. So let's focus on what are all the positive things that can happen now. Take a moment to think about all those really good things that you want to happen. Replace your negative thoughts by positive ones. Feel them actually happening. How does it make you feel? What emotions are coming up for you when you think of all these wonderful things that are going to occur in your life? And wrap all these feelings up. Take your violet light and wrap them like a ribbon with a bow around all these beautiful, positive emotions. And keep them attached to you. They're connected to you with this beautiful violet light. They're there to stay forever. You've got them. And every time you have a negative thought about those fears that have gone away, just remind yourself, you sent them out to space. They don't exist anymore. And remember these beautiful positive thoughts that you have wrapped up in your purple ribbon. And just remind yourself how good that feels and how you're bringing that into your life. And now thank that beautiful violet light. Show it the gratitude for what it's doing for you and how it's helping you and for staying with you. And take a moment to finish that off and bring it to a close. To appreciate your purple, your violet ribbon of light and how grateful you feel. And then bring yourself back into your body. Feel the chair or the couch underneath your bottom and your back. Focus on your breath again to become aware of how you're breathing. Bring yourself back into your room and then back to the group we're in now and back to this presentation. And when you're ready, open up your eyes and give yourself a stretch. And thank you. That brings our presentation to a close. Thank you for staying with me till the end. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you really enjoyed the meditation and that you enjoy having the violet ribbon of light with you. Have a fantastic day, evening, morning, whatever it is when you're watching this. Thank you. I'm Janeen Sonsi, and you can find me at those or below this video. Thank you and bye.